Hi everyone, it's Daniela. Welcome to my channel, and for this video I'll be talking about how I wrote my personal statements when I was applying to law schools. A little bit about me before we actually get started. I am in my third and final year of law school and I am based in the Greater Toronto area, so this video is primarily for Ontario law school applicants. However, I do think that this concept in the law school world is pretty universal, so I do suggest you keep watching. Alright, so I'm going to divide this video into 6 parts. We have the research, planning, self-reflection, first draft, revision, and final draft. Step number 1 was research. When I tell you I went hard on networking during this time, I really mean it. I essentially connected with current students and junior lawyers to pick their brains and know how they crafted their applications. I was able to get tips and tricks on how to structure my essay, manage my time, and so many more. I will never forget this one chat that I had with a recent graduate then who is now a lawyer and is one of my greatest mentors. And she suggested a storyline for me to follow and I decided to use it. And she literally just took that from the conversations that we continually had. So that just goes to show that networking can really take you so far in the game and can open so many doors that you never even knew existed. This was also the stage where I solidified my schools of choice. And this is really important because you essentially have to tailor each statement as per each school's requirements. Step 2, the planning. My benchmark was the application deadline, which was November 1st, and that is typically the date every year. I obviously also accounted for LSAT prep, LSAT writing, however many times I needed to write that beast. I basically started my application process in May, which was 6 months before the deadline, and I would say that gave me ample time to get my reference letters and the other components of my application. It was very critical for me to set a working deadline per deliverable, but keep in mind that once you have a general statement, you basically have a template that you can just extract information from. Now the self-reflection. So I treated the stage as kind of like a dump where I exhausted all of the questions, prompts, words, themes that I thought were moving and relevant for my personal story. So for example, I asked myself some questions like, why law? Who inspires me? What inspires me? How would my passion for community development help advance the legal education and the practice of law? Make it make sense, essentially. Having a narrative structure is crucial in writing your personal statements because at the end of the day, it is your unique story to tell that law schools want to hear about. Step number 4 was my first draft. Let's just get into the structure of the personal statement that I submitted to my law school. I started with my upbringing in the Philippines and my move to Canada as a young teenager. And I mentioned the defining moment, like one key moment that really drew me to advocate for myself and for other people like me. And then I showed a pattern. I demonstrated my continued interest in the law through my experience in high school, undergrad, and outside of school. I highlighted my undergrad experience the most because I definitely did the most during my undergrad. I was involved in a lot of extracurricular activities. I worked several jobs and I completed an undergraduate thesis, which was quite a big project. I was also working and volunteering at the time of my application, so I made sure to include that as well. I figured that it just showed that continuing commitment to my interests and passions. I then talked about why I wanted to go to law school, particularly this school, and certain initiatives and activities that I would want to be a part of if given the opportunity. Most law schools encourage applicants to include an addendum or any equity considerations that you may have. So don't be afraid to explain as to why you got an unsatisfactory grade in one class, for example, or you just have certain gaps in your application. For me personally, I talked about family and health matters, but ultimately I emphasized how I was able to bounce back from these adversities. I concluded my statement by piecing everything together, using keywords from the school's website, incorporating their values, mission statements to make sense of why the school and I would be a good fit. Step number 5 was revision. The way I bothered everybody at this stage was not a joke. I basically had an editing crew of about 5 to 7 people. It is so imperative to have other people proofread your essay. It just offers a different perspective and is honestly often very invaluable. I made sure that I showed my draft to different types of people. This group consisted of my family members, mentors, friends. This just ensured that no matter what, no matter who you are, as a reader, you're understanding where I'm coming from. This also reassured me that the admissions office would thoroughly understand my story. Last but not least was the final draft. So after receiving feedback, I obviously had to make my final edits. I obviously had to decide whether or not I was accepting certain edits. I don't think I fully fine-tuned everything up until the day before, the day of. Like, Every day was just another day of editing. I meticulously checked for grammar, punctuation, spelling, or any other errors. Attention to detail is key here, because if there's one thing about admissions committees is that they will read your essays from top to bottom. So I made sure that I submitted well-edited personal statements. That concludes my law school personal statement writing process, and I hope you learned a thing or two, because I definitely learned a lot about myself throughout this process. And if you are thinking of applying to law school, just know that you got this, but please, I cannot stress this enough. Give yourself a lot of time and leeway. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.